Hello and welcome to Special Connections. I'm Adam Newton. This is my wife Jamie, and today we have with us our friend Eric Komar, who's going to be talking to us about adaptive sports in Central New York. Welcome, guys. I appreciate you guys coming and being here tonight.
It's great to
Uh,
be here.
Eric,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm going to give a little brief background that I have on you, and then we'll do a more personal introduction and go from there. Eric is 40 years old now, born in Syracuse, lived in North Syracuse till he was around 14, moved to Liverpool, graduated from Liverpool High, so he's a Central New York born and raised. Went to SUNY Cortland. You've worked in the human services field, looks like since 2009. A couple of agencies we both work together. That's how Eric and I know each other. We work together at Liberty Resources and now at Advocates. Uh, as far as adaptive sports, looks like you've been doing stuff since you were 6 years old. Challenger Little League. Uh, then it was the Syracuse Flyers wheelchair basketball, which changed names a couple times. Move along, and now it's CNY Adaptive Sports. Is that right?
Yep. hmm
Uh, and then on top of that, I see that you've been involved in a lot of other various sports and everything else, including martial arts, uh, participating in amateur grappling tournaments. And the main thing that most of us who know you for, obviously, is the arm wrestling tournaments, starting out local and going to the point of world champions, which is just amazing, incredible. And anybody who knows me and knows how I feel about Eric knows that I get really excited about that. That's one of my favorite things about Eric. And I boast about it to everyone I know that I am friends with a world arm wrestling champion, just in case anybody wants to give me a hard time.
I keep telling you, anytime you want to train with me, I can get you to a world championship in 5 years or less.
I'd rather just talk about you doing
All right. All right.
it. Uh, but at any rate, so share with us before we get into all the adaptive sports and everything. Give us a little bit of your background and a little more detail about how you came to be so involved in all of this.
Sure. Well, can't really tell with the camera angle, but I'm sitting in a wheelchair right now. I've was born with spina bifida. Spent my whole life in the Syracuse area. Um, and started going to school in the CNS district. After my freshman year, moved to Liverpool. That's where I wound up graduating high school. But the reason for the chair is I was born with a condition called spina bifida, which it's easier to show pictures of than explain. But essentially, spina bifida is when one or more of the vertebrae, the bones in the spine, when they don't completely fully form, and then they leave the spinal cord, which is all the bundle of nerves that essentially end up branching out and controlling your whole body. Those nerves get damaged, and whatever damage is done, at least in 1984, whatever damage was done, it was done, and it can occur at any level of the spine, which is going to affect the child's physical abilities. Nowadays, thankfully, there's some really cool new technology on the way. There's prenatal operation um, that can go a long way in mitigating the damage of spina bifida. Also, there's stem cell research and new technologies that are coming out every day. So a kid born with spina bifida today is certainly better off than a kid born in 1984. So that's kind of the medical stuff. And as far as um, sports, my mom tells a really to me it's kind of a touching story. She tried to enter me in I think it was soccer, because when I was much younger, much lighter, I got around really well on some forearm crutches. Like I could run and just about keep up with other kids. So I was all jazzed up to play soccer. but somehow there was some sort of inner politics on the team, parents not wanting me to play either due to safety or for whatever reason. And I heard the phrase, pardon the ugly language, but I heard the phrase that one parent didn't want their kid to play with a gimp on the team. So mom heard that, and we 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 said we're out. And fortunately, she was looking in the newspaper one day and found an ad for the Challenger Division Little League. So I joined up with that around the age of 6. Met my best friend there, who you've met. We're hanging out with him last night. And played that until about the age of 15. If you want to cut me off, feel free. I could go. I can go for a minute.
Yeah. No, this is great.
um,
I can't believe the amount of time that I've known the two of you. I didn't realize that's how you two guys met. So I'm very fascinated to hear that. That's awesome.
yeah, we argue about the age. I say 8 and 6, and he says 9 and 7. Whatever. We're about 2.5 years apart in age,
Yeah.
and we were under 10 when we met. Playing Challenger Little League, and then we got to be about the age of 14, or I did anyway. I was about the age of 14. And the Challenger division, it's great from what I understand. What I'm about to explain changed. But at the time when I was playing, it was really just for fun, activity. Everybody gets a trophy kind of thing. And I've just got a real competitive spirit. So I was kind of like psychologically, I was kind of aging out of it a little bit. Um, and I was looking for something more competitive. And I had a adaptive phys ed teacher who told me about Syracuse Flyers wheelchair basketball and how they traveled and played and played real games where the score mattered and there was winners and losers and stuff I was looking for. Um, and so I was excited to become old enough to play that. At the time, I think I was 13 when I started hearing about that. And I heard that there was like age of 15 to start. Um, and just so happened that I went to a summer camp called Camp Goodwill in Chittenango, and there was a gentleman who was a counselor there, like me, was in a chair, and he happened to be the president of the Syracuse Flyers at the time, and he said, "Don't worry about your age. Just come play. We're not super organized. You can come and play in our practices. If we have games, we might have to have you watch for a little bit." But I came to practices and kept up with adults and stuff like that. So that started that ball rolling for this is probably right around 2000. Because in '99 I moved from North Syracuse to Liverpool, and it was shortly after that I got involved with the Flyers. So got involved with them. Our probably our biggest event still to this day every year is a big tournament at the New York State Fair, which has historically been on Labor Day. Usually runs from like 10 in the morning till about 5, 6 in the evening. We'll pull other teams regionally. I'm sorry, I'm shaking my camera quite a bit. We'll pull teams from Utica. There's a team in Rochester, and if we can put together other teams, we just try to use the fairgrounds and the state fair and the audience there as a platform to demonstrate what we're all about. So let's see. The Flyers. We still are we're the CNY Flyers at this point. But I want to say it was maybe right around 2009. There was a gentleman named Greg Callen who I actually at one point I saw him in Walmart. He was, early 30s, a fit guy, moving really well in his chair, and I pretty much did my best to chase him across Walmart to try to recruit him to play for the Flyers. We exchanged information. I gave him all the information I could about the Flyers. He didn't show up for quite some time. Finally, it turned out that he had a coworker who was also a chair user, a basketball player, and the coworker really prodded him to come. So finally, it was probably a good several months before the time I saw him in Walmart before he popped over to the Flyers. Um, so he came, had joined in on our practice, and had a great time. And he had a lot of business acumen, really, really skilled with networking and things like that. So he wanted to kind of develop his own network of adapted sports that encompass more than just basketball, which is all we were doing at the time. Um, and we all, the Flyers, separate of him, we all kind of felt like he had get up and go and all of that to get us in a more exciting direction. So we kind of merged with what he had in mind, and he created Move Along Incorporated, which very soon after forming Move Along, he was able to develop a sled hockey team, which I joined up and have been playing that for quite a few years now. And basically, for those who haven't seen sled hockey, I recommend to Google. And but sled hockey, you're sitting on a sled with two skates right underneath you, with your legs out in front of you, and the skates when you start out, they're kind of about this far apart, I would say. And the more skill you get, you move them in to their point where they're almost touching. And what that allows is more maneuverability, but at the risk of tipping over more. So beginners, they're not real keen on tipping over and all that. Not great at getting back up once they've tipped over. So we keep the skates out until they get comfortable in the sled and gradually move them in. And then we've got, for either hand, we've got a hockey stick. I'd say probably 3 feet long. Um, there's the blade end of the stick that you hit the puck with, and then there's metal teeth on the handle end that dig into the ice, and you pull yourself. You essentially, it's almost like using the hockey sticks as like skiing outriggers or like canes, crutches, and you just pull yourself across the ice. And then when it's time to hit the puck, you slide your hand down to the handle end, where the pick is, and you hit the hockey puck with either stick. So that's a
I
lot of
just got to
fun.
say, before you move on from that, I just got to say that I've only seen it a brief amount of times, but it is so entertaining to watch the skill that you guys have on those sleds, as well as how difficult it is for a beginner, even if it is somebody who's played hockey probably their own life. When we got to watch you guys and the SU guys play, it was it was Harlem Globetrotters. It was hysterical watching these professional hockey guys. Uh, Trying to stay up and not fall over. It was one of the most fun times I've ever had,
Yeah,
and to
that's the
see the
one.
skill you guys have is incredible.
Thank you. Thank you. That's one thing I've always liked to emphasize with other athletes, and anytime I get a chance, like with news or whatever, to speak about the sport, is it's completely different. It's the same in a lot of ways, but also different enough where I think if LeBron or your top guys in stand-up basketball, if they had a seat, I think uh, an experienced wheelchair basketball player would probably make him look silly. Um, but
Just the way you
um,
guys pick up the ball, watching you guys play wheelchair basketball, and Jamie, just seeing them like ride the ball on the wheel and pop it up is just it's just fascinating. You watch it and you're just so intrigued by the skill set that comes involved with it. And I remember one of the things, and I get on tangents and I apologize, but one of the days that I was there watching you guys play wheelchair basketball, and one of the kids that isn't typically in a chair flipped. So he's flipped over in the chair, and his dad is also one of the players. Seemed like a really great family there. And the kid's like, "Get me up," and the dad's like, "No, man, you gotta, just like anybody else, you gotta figure it out." And he did. It took him a minute, but he figured out how to get back up in the chair without having to unstrap and get out. And I just thought that was incredible.
yeah, I kind of support that mentality of letting a kid, a young person with a disability, kind of more or less figure things out for themselves. There's a line, a
Sure.
tricky line to navigate of safety versus independence. And I tend to lean on the side of independence. Sometimes at my own sometimes at my own peril. I got scars and bumps and bruises, whatever, but live and learn.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, that the same young man, if it's the guy I'm thinking of, he's made leaps and bounds in basketball and in sled hockey too. He would have kind of the same. He would tip over in his sled, and coach usually for most players, first season coach is usually out there, um, helping people prop back up. Um,
Yeah.
and that was the case with him too. But a few years in, he's now able to pop himself back up, and sometimes it takes a lot of uh, verbal encouragement. You can do it.
Yeah.
You don't need anybody's help. You can do it. Get after it. That kind of mentality, which I've always been a fan of, um, and it's cool to see the self fulfillment, I guess, when a young new player, is able to get themselves up off their elbows and move better in the sled.
Right. Let me ask you to, and I don't want to cut you short, but I want to make sure we have time to talk about everything. So I'm going to ask you to jump ahead a little bit.
Mhm.
Give us a quick rundown on the arm wrestling, and then we'll switch over to what's available now and how do people get connected to it.
Sure, yeah. So I was actually it's connected to grappling. I was involved in martial arts lessons. Actually, it all started from our work at our former employer, and I had a young man who wanted to take martial arts lessons for his community hab, and so I took him to martial arts lessons. Got invited to kind of participate alongside of him, and then I started kind of booking my own lessons independent of him. Um, and one of the martial arts instructors was real tight with a high level arm wrestler in Pennsylvania. And they met one here in locally in the Syracuse area. Um, they booked it was at Quake and Staker Loop. They booked an arm wrestling tournament, the first one I had ever heard of in town. And given pushing the wheelchair and being on crutches, I've always had pretty big, strong arms, and people would always tell me, you should get into arm wrestling. So I went to that tournament, got crushed, but I met the guy that would become my one of my best friends and my arm wrestling coach to this day. And we went from me losing at Quaker Steak and Lube. There was another tournament a few months down the road at Toby Keith's there in Destiny, and I got my first win there after a few more months of training, and things just kept improving to the point where we went to regional tournaments, driving down to Pennsylvania. Um, I had a really cool experience in Philadelphia in 2017, where after my performance, my coach was like, "All right, I think we're ready to start looking at like going to a national championship." My first nationals in 2017 was Tahoe, Nevada, and while I was at that Philly tournament, I met a guy who he eventually he had a business and he wound up sponsoring me to go to Tahoe. I did so well in my class at Tahoe that he's like, okay, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. I'd like to sponsor you to go to the World Championships. So I was set to go to my first World Championships in Budapest, Hungary in 2017. Went there and I want to say I got second left arm, third place right. But I was exposed to a different sanctioning body or different promotions tournament same year. And I went to Poland that year as well. And then I did really well in Poland and just kept in the loop on future years tournaments and been to Poland a total of 3 times. There was Budapest, there was um, let's see, there was Orlando, there was France, and coming up in the fall here, got an opportunity to go to Greece. So
That is awesome. Fantastic. It has been so cool to watch your growth and progress with all of that, and some of the tournaments that we've gotten to see online and watch have just been amazing. So we're really excited for that. And if you don't mind the plug, at the end of this, I'll have links and everything that we're gonna put on for everybody, because we're gonna talk about how people can connect with some of these sports in Central New York.
mhm.
So there'll be links for that, but I'm also I'll probably have some kind of link on there to try to connect people to you, because if anybody wants to contribute or help or sponsor Eric on his this next trip, that'd be fantastic. Unfortunately, these guys don't get recognized like they should, and so they don't get the financial support that some of the other athletes get. This is Olympic level stuff, but doesn't necessarily get that same kind of recognition.
There's been conversation in recent years. They kind of plan both Olympics and Paralympics out. I think it's at least 4 years in advance. And unfortunately, from what I understand, arm wrestling in the Paralympics just missed the cut of being accepted for the 2024 games. I don't know if the vote has occurred for the 2028 games. 2028, I'm going to be, pushing 43, 44, somewhere around there. Yeah,
Yeah, it's getting close,
that
right?
might be my last opportunity. I don't know. My arm wrestling coach, he said for arm wrestlers, your prime kind of comes in your 40s. He said that a few years back, and he's 55 now. I think he would probably tell me that prime is in 50s
Yeah, right.
because he's still dominant. So
Right.
yeah, I think if you just keep training, one thing I got to do, one thing that's I don't even want to make excuses, but one thing that can be tricky, you got to be smarter about how you take care of your body as a person with a disability. It's easy without using your legs. It's easy to a little bit easier to put on weight and a little bit harder to take it off. But you can't use that as an excuse. And, you got to count my calories and work out just like everybody else. That's always been an Achilles heel of me. I have no problem. Um, picking up something heavy and lifting it once, that's fun. But, I got to put the reps in.
Sure, no doubt. Well, I've definitely seen you do the work, and I've seen the results of that work, so I know you can do it. That's for sure. All
Thanks.
right, so let's talk about Central New York today. What's out there, what's available, and how do people get connected? There's a mom out there, I'm sure, with a kid right now. She's going to see this and she's going to say, I don't want him to get hurt. I don't want him falling out of the chair on the basketball field court. I don't want him, doing this or that or her. Um, how do we encourage them to get involved, and where do we send them to do it, and how do they do it safely?
Well, first thing is check out the Facebook page for CNY Adaptive Sports. We're consistently plugging all of our events and all of our sports. We've got um, wheelchair basketball starting up tomorrow night. Or it's Wednesday, correct?
Yep.
Wednesday night at Wednesday night, 6 o'clock at Carrier Park. We'll be on a court there. Um, we usually have at least six guys, at least a 3-on-3. That's a bad night. Sometimes it can be upwards of 5-on-5. Sometimes we even have to sub guys in. Um, so that's a lot of fun. And let me stress that we encourage not just folks with disabilities, but we welcome uh, folks without disabilities to hop in a wheelchair and check out what it's like. You might be um, a dominant high school athlete, and pop into a wheelchair and find um, that it's tricky, or you might be uh, like your son and be a dominant high school athlete and get in and put 10 points up on the 40-year-old, 39-year-old, 40-year-old who's been playing for 15 years.
Yeah, that kid, he's got a talent. It's a little annoying, but I love him for it. It's amazing. He can do
Yeah,
about anything.
I've learned.
So
Yeah.
somebody able-bodied comes and they're going to jump in a chair, you guys have chairs available?
We do. Yep.
Okay.
We've got chairs. And we keep everybody safe. Tip overs. I believe, I don't want to put a stamp on this, but I believe all the chairs have anti-tipper bars, but weird things happen, if we're both rolling for a ball, and we collide into each other, somebody might go flying. That's
Mhm.
no different than playing, stand-up ball.
Yeah.
Things happen, but we do our best to keep everybody safe and having a good time, exposing them to the sport. We're always looking for new members of the team, and we really like seeing as many players as we can on Labor Day at the fairgrounds. Um,
Yeah.
Sled hockey, things things can kind of be in flux in the off season. But last season we played at Sunnycrest Ice Rink over by I believe it's Henniger High School,
Yep.
if not
Sounds correct.
mistaken. Um, we had our practices over at Sunnycrest. Um, we had a big end of the year tournament at Skinny Atlas YMCA. We traveled some. We travel up to. This was a real thrill. We got to go up this year. We've gone up to Lake Placid for several consecutive years. But this year we got to play on the 1980 Olympic rink, which was a huge thrill. If anybody knows anything about hockey, that was a big deal in 1980. Team USA was a massive underdog to the Russian team, and we wound up beating them in the playoffs and going on to get the gold medal. Um, so we got to play on that exact ice where there's a movie called Miracle. It was a big deal for hockey folks. So we got that. We play up at SUNY Canton. We've gone out of state before. There's been a national tournament in Marlborough, Massachusetts that we drove out for. Some teammates and I drove out to Michigan for nationals one year. So there's fun travel involved. You get to see a lot of the country, and in my case, I was lucky to find the arm wrestling, and I've seen parts of the world which I never thought I'd see.
And so if somebody wants to get involved in the hockey, that's the same
That's
same
CNY Adaptive
page
Sports
as
as
you.
well. Yep. Yeah,
Awesome.
the arm wrestling is not exactly affiliated with CNY Adaptive Sports, but you can always reach out to me, and I can connect you with my team, my coach, and all that.
That's what I was going to ask. Are you
Hmm.
comfortable with people reaching out to you personally as well?
Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think a lot
Facebook.
of people like to do that.
Yep. And my coach was phenomenal at including me, um, thinking of ways to uh, different adaptations of movement and things like that, ways that I can be successful. One of the interesting things about arm wrestling and having weak legs is when you're pulling on somebody's arms, it can kind of benefit you if you lose leg strength. If you just fall, or fall this way, you can kind of work to your advantage to let gravity do its thing. My coach always says gravity is undefeated. So if you're trying to pull a guy this way and you got all your body weight this way and your legs fail on you, that's only going to add more weight that you're pulling with. So in some ways, my disability can be a bit of a benefit that way, I guess. Um, and so yeah, that's it's one of the cool things about arm wrestling.
So
Um,
we've been talking about
mhm.
these different sports and we've kind of gotten to the point of talking about families and getting involved. Would you say arm wrestling is something like, is there a certain age you think that somebody would get involved in something like that? Is that something better left for adults? Where do you see that?
I've seen kids get involved. 8, 9 year olds. There's frequently a kids division in most of the tournaments that I'm in, and especially in the world tournament. Um, Typically it's, uh, sons and daughters of highly successful arm wrestlers. They're going to have a knack for it. So one of the more popular faces of arm wrestling is a guy named Devin Larratt, and he's got two young sons. I believe it's two. I've definitely seen one. Might be two young sons that are older teenager, young adults, and they're coming along, and they're just as strong as their dad. And I remember seeing them as, I've been in arm wrestling for 10 years now. I remember seeing them, as real little kids, arm wrestling. And it's uh, probably you want to be, you want to be safe, period. But kind of got to watch the kids and make sure that they listen to the official say stop when stopping is required so that everybody stays safe. But that's how it is with any sport, really.
Sure, right, absolutely. When the whistle blows, you stop.
Right.
Yeah, excellent. All right, well, that's awesome. I think that's really cool. Let me ask you about, and I know this isn't part of CNY Adaptive Sports either, but I know it's something that you've gotten involved in, and I think there's another organization. I don't know if you want to get into all that, but what about the golf? I've seen some really cool things going on with golf, and I was just curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So there's an awesome program uh called New York Adaptive Golf. Um and I've been going to their they have a annual tournament every summer. Um Usually occurs at Battle Island. This year it's going on in July. And I got some friends who have joined me in years past. And there's some really awesome adaptive technology, which is one of the things I love looking at, researching all of that. Everything from, I mean, I don't happen to be an amputee, but some of the prosthetics that are out there are really cool. But in the golf world, there are adaptive golf carts. There's one called a Solo Rider. It's essentially a three-wheeled golf cart, and the seat on it swivels so I could turn and face this way, or turn face that way. If depending on where my golf ball is, I can drive up next to my golf ball, turn my seat this way, and just take a shot. Also, the seat will rise up or lower. It'll tilt forward to raise you up. You're belted in, so if you're able to plant your feet or just touch your feet to the ground and adjust the seat so it tips you upward, you're almost nearly in a standing position. And for a golf shot, you want to be just a little bit bent kneed, I think, anyway. So it kind of puts you in a perfect golf position, or it'll give you whatever's comfortable for you. And one of the fun things about this tournament, it just came to mind in talking about the cart, is they'll place a cart on the golf hole, and golfers that have never been in one of these golf carts before, they'll come to it, and there's some sort of added bonus for trying to shoot your shot from this cart that most people have never shot from before. And it's kind of cool because somebody in my situation who's shot from it before, I can look good against my friends who've never been in it before. So that's cool. And there's a lot of other like little challenges where they um sort of infuse the experience of someone with various disabilities into the golf tournament. But if you look up for inclusion, that's the name of the golf tournament, and it's New York Adaptive Golf, really cool program. Um, and that tournament's up in Battle Island in the Fulton area.
There's a website for that.
Facebook page for sure. New York
Try to
Adaptive
find that.
Golf.
We can get that on there too.
Mhm.
And it's a fundraiser type tournament, right? The money goes to help buy more of those carts. Am I?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's one thing with adaptive sports, whether it's a basketball wheelchair, a hockey sled, um, or one of these adaptive golf carts or anything like that. Unfortunately, but they tend to run with a pretty heavy price tag. I can't remember the last time. The last time I looked at a basketball wheelchair, it was, every bit of 3 grand. They're probably pushing 3,500 at this point. Um, so that's especially for a like a kid who's trying to get into it. It's a heavy burden on the parents. They're worried about not just um they're more worried about making sure that their kid has an everyday wheelchair, rather, and they're making sure that that's secure, and they're not worried so much about something for them to play basketball in. And there is a difference. There's a interesting difference in the chairs too. Um, with the wheels, there's no tread in the back.
Oop, froze up for a minute. Oh, there he is. You're back. There's no tread in the back, you said?
Yeah, there's no tread on the tires.
Mm,
And the tires are slanted to make it to allow easier turning. Um, and they're propped up a little bit higher too, I think.
got it.
Mhm.
That's interesting. Well, that's awesome stuff. And I think, you know, I would say from what I've seen, and Jamie, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. I think the main thing is once you get started, right, that's where you really start to learn more. So whether it's Challenger baseball or CNY's adaptive sports or for inclusion, the golf tournament, whatever it is, I find that once you start to get involved, that's where you meet new people and you start to build and build and build, and then suddenly you've got a community.
Absolutely. That's, you know, first, well, not the first because he came in a couple years later, but went to baseball and was playing out in the dirt with his kid, and 30 pushing 35 years later, we're still buds.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is fantastic. Jamie, do you have any questions for Eric?
No, I don't think that I do. I mean, you covered a lot of information that I think is going to be really good for parents and caregivers to at least get started and see if this is something that they'd like to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I just
Eric,
wanted to say though, thank you though for sharing because I didn't know a lot of that stuff about you, Eric, and that, I've known you a long time, so that was really cool to learn some more information about you.
Well, it's fun once you pop the cork, it's kind of hard to get me to stop talking.
No, that it was great. A lot of information and lots of stuff. So that's great.
Eric, I want to ask you one last thing.
Mhm.
What is your message to a kid who might be watching this, who's interested in taking on a sport, and they're the kid of a mom? Because I'm thinking of Jamie and our kids and the way they were when they were little. You got a mom, she's scared, she doesn't want her kid to get hurt, and a lot of moms of kids that have any kind of disability, and dads too, get protective. They want to make sure they're safe, and so they get a little timid, they get a little shy, they get a little nervous. A lot of parents that I meet have a hard enough time. They're scared enough to have their kids anywhere in society sometimes because they're just worried
Yeah.
about judgment and things like that. So now we're going to take that same kid and we're going to put him in a wheelchair and put him on a basketball court. We're going to put him on a hockey sled. We're gonna get him out playing golf, which maybe isn't quite as dangerous a contact sport, but whatever it might be. What's your message to that kid? What should that kid go and say to mom and dad to get them on board so they can go and do these fun things?
Yeah, growth isn't risk free, and it isn't always pain free. So it's a scraped knee, whatever, a little bit of bumps and bruises. Of course, in all of our programs, we do all we can to mitigate those things, but losses, bruised egos, scrapes, those are going to happen, and they are um, they allow growth, that they inspire growth, both internal and external, but the internal is really where it's needed. Uh, a lot of times kids, in my situation, have had multiple surgeries, that they've unfortunately experienced a lot of physical pain at a young age. So, a little scrape here and there isn't gonna be a major problem. Um, but yeah, just a kid with a disability is still a kid, and you got to let your kid be a kid.
Yeah.
Um, you know, talk to your doctor. Run it by the doctor, and just trust in what they say, and just let your kid grow, and be exposed to other kids. You don't always have to say it's cool. It's an interesting and tricky thought process in terms of spending time with other kids with a disability, and also inclusion, full on inclusion, playing with other kids without disability. You want a little bit of both. Um, you want a little bit of time with other kids that you can relate to, that don't look at you and treat you like you're different because they're going through the same thing. And that's a topic we could do a whole nother show on.
Sure.
It's it's really cool to be with people that so let me rephrase. One thing that I notice with hanging out with other people with disabilities, like the disability that we have is like one of the last things we talk about. We talk about our everyday, what we did, over the weekend, stuff like that. It's not often that it comes up, and we kind of have this respect where if we meet somebody in a wheelchair, the first thing we don't even think about what happened. It's how far can you shoot the ball.
Sure. Absolutely. And I gotta say, and I'm kind of speaking from the side of ignorance here, but I'm gonna say this, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. Having spent time around you, knowing the time that you've spent involved in all these different sports, and grabbing those scrapes and those bruises and everything along the way has built some of that strength and independence in who you are, I think, as an individual, as a person, because we all need support, and that's fantastic. And if
Mhm.
somebody needs an aid or something like that, that's great. But I know that
Yeah.
you didn't go to college with an aide. You don't travel the world like you do with an aide. You go to international airports, and you get on planes, and you go to foreign countries, and you have your teammates that are playing with you and stuff.
Yeah.
But you do all that stuff. You go more places and do more things than I would be comfortable doing on my own. Um, and I think a lot of that strength and independence comes from the fact that you grew up being a kid, you know.
Yeah.
Yes, there's this, but I'm also going to go and do the things I want to do and explore the things I want to explore and have the experiences I want to have.
Yeah. And with that, I got to give my teammates credit because they'll hold the bag. They'll carry a bag for me. I actually, it's wild. I've got a arm wrestling teammate who he doesn't have the use of his left arm. He arm wrestles like crazy with his right. But and he's still so kind to grab a bag for me. I'll have one on my lap, and then he'll take a second one. But yeah, I really encourage young people with disabilities to be all that they can, and conversations like this, remind me maybe to do a little more. Maybe I'll pick up some weights here in a minute when we're done talking. But yeah, you really don't look at what you don't look at your deficits, don't look at your weaknesses, don't look at what you don't have the ability to do. Look at what you've got and really try to maximize that, whether it's here or here, that kind of thing. But yeah, definitely, reach for the stars kind of thing. I pride myself on working a full working full time, 40 hours. And I really don't there's insurance wise, there is assi- pardon me, there is assistance that I get that I just it doesn't suit me, but it's kind of, unfortunately, with the cost of medical goods and all that, it's kind of a have to kind of thing that I'm really not excited about. And uh but Yeah, and unfortunately, I've met a lot of folks with disability that they're they tend to run more or less depressed. I can't. There's a lot of I can't mentality, and sadly, I've encountered some parents that have kind of fostered that and haven't exactly motivated their child to reach for the stars, more or
Yeah.
less. I can give you and I know we're probably trying to wrap up, but um one time, apartment I was living at, we were having a garage sale. I wasn't present for this story, but my mom, she was selling an old basketball that I had, and this little boy in a wheelchair rolled up. He grabbed the basketball off the table and he started bouncing it on the ground. His dad came over, took it away, and said, "Give me that. You can't play with that." And my mom was like, "My son's been playing wheelchair basketball for 6 years or however long it had been,"
Yeah.
and that he was kind of like had a little bit of a shocked look from what she said, and I just hope that that was a learning thing for him, and I hope that it benefited the kid in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the point of what we're trying to get across, right? Is these opportunities are there. It's scary, absolutely, and it's tough. But let's give it a shot, right? Let's let these kids take that chance and give it a shot as safely as possible. Like you said, talk to your doctor. Make sure that you're doing all the things that you need to do to be safe. Um, but let's take those shots. Let's give kids those opportunities for independence and growth and strength, because then they grow into being some pretty incredible people later. And a lot of that comes from that independence and those little successes. Um,
Absolutely.
but yes, you're right. We should wrap up. But I'm so grateful that you took the time and met with us today. I can't wait to get this up and posted. I want people to see it. Jamie, thank you for joining with us as well. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon, and we'll probably be doing more of these. So
I'm
thank
good with it. Bring
you.
me on next week if you want.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. We'll probably follow up when you get back from the next World Champions. We'll definitely
Yeah,
do that.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you guys. Have a great evening.
thank you.